Before carrying on with this interview, I'd like to ask you a question. You raised something very fascinating, saying you went from an agnostic to a theist since you've gotten here. Can you tell me a bit more about this? Because that's something I'm very curious about.
Yeah, well, it's a tale as old as time. So I was reflecting on the argument from psychophysical harmony.
Would you please explain to the viewers who may not know what the argument from psychophysical harmony is?
So yeah, if you wanna go into it more, there are a bunch of interviews on it with Justin Crummett and with Brian Cutter. They co-authored a paper recently. It's currently unpublished, but it's in its preprint version, which you can read online. And so the idea is essentially there is a very fortunate matchup between our mental states and physical states. So the psychophysical laws, the laws that govern the relationship between consciousness and the physical world, result in psychophysical harmony. So when we see things, those things are actually there. When we're stabbed, we feel pain instead of pleasure. Now, conceivably, the laws could have been completely different and disharmonious, such that all I ever saw was static, and all I ever felt was the feeling of tepid bathwater, and all I ever heard was Nirvana playing in my ears over and over again. And it seems like some of these ways the psychophysical laws could have been are actually intrinsically more probable than the ones we observe now, like because there are ones that are way simpler. You could have just seen the color black and heard a single noise and felt a single feeling. And the psychophysical laws conceivably could have been that way, and so it's incredibly surprising that they're not, and that they appear to be so finely tuned for harmony now. Or like on a hypothesis of naturalism, on atheism, this is very surprising because presumably on naturalism the universe is indifferent to like producing particular goods. Whereas on theism it's not ridiculously surprising. Because presumably God, if he is going to create creatures, would want creatures who can interact with the world properly and whose mental states match up with physical states in rationally appropriate ways.
So would you say that this is kind of a development of the fine-tuning argument?
It is, but for the mind, and it also doesn't fall into any of the same pitfalls as the fine-tuning argument. So there are certain weaknesses of the fine-tuning argument that this argument just doesn't share. So one, for example, is you can undercut the inference from fine-tuning to theism with the simulation hypothesis. It predicts the data presumably just as well. But with this argument, it's about much more fundamental metaphysical laws, the psychophysical laws. And so if we're positing that a species of intelligent humans or aliens fine-tune the universe with a simulation, then we'd want to explain their psychophysical harmony.
So before we carry on talking about your transition from agnosticism to theism, perhaps, I would just like to give a quick shout out to Luke Barnes, who came on my channel a few days ago. I haven't actually published that video yet, but you can hear the full recording of that on my podcast, Dostoevsky and Us. I have uploaded it there. However, if you do want the full video, then wait a few days and I'll upload it when I actually get time to actually edit the video. But carrying on with your journey from agnosticism to theism, do you think it was your course in being at Oxford which helped it? Or would you say it was kind of just, it just so happened that occurred when you were at Oxford?
No, I think it just so happened that it occurred when I was at Oxford. I don't think there was any relation, you know. Maybe it was the sight of all the churches that made me change my feelings towards the argument. But I think I'd just been thinking about it for a few months, and there were lots of different issues to sort out. And I just realized at some point at 12:05 on a Tuesday night that I was more convinced than not.
When you say you're a theist, would you say you're a Christian theist, or are you just kind of a theist sympathizer?
Yeah, just very tentatively a theist. I think what this argument does is, for me, it puts naturalism to the side, standard forms of naturalism. It's still compatible with sort of non-theistic hypotheses, which also predict psychophysical harmony. So one might be Thomas Nagel's view that the universe is built with teleological laws, and that those develop towards like valuable end states. And so like that's a version of naturalism in some way, but it doesn't appeal to God. And so there are other kind of theism adjacent hypotheses that predict the data as well. I guess I just think that theism wins out because it's way more intrinsically probable than some of these other views. So I'm just like a very tentative, minimal theist. I don't have a theology yet.
Now, do you think that learning theology has kind of helped you develop that theology? understanding what this theistic God is? Or would you sometimes feel that it's almost become you almost become a bit detached from that God via learning theology?
I want to say neither. No, so I don't think I've learned anything about God. Like learned is a factive word. Like it assumes that the thing you learn is true, I guess. So like conditional on Christianity being true, I guess I've learned things about God, but I'd need to believe that Christianity is true first. Right, and I'm not there yet. I need to look through the resurrection evidence, and before that, I need to establish that the prior probability of miracles is sufficiently high as to like outweigh Hume's criticism.
Yes, indeed.